All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. Now, full disclosure, I typically don't talk about other YouTubers. It's just not my thing. I try to stay away from it. I think because I've seen videos people have done about me and just cutting me to pieces and so forth. And by the way, I'm not going to trash this gentleman. I think he does really good work. I think his presentation is fantastic. He obviously has some kind of an operating budget. He's got big interviews he's doing all the time. And yeah, it makes me jealous, but I don't have money to, I don't have that kind of access for whatever reason. Patrons always ask me, how come you don't interview Steve Perry? And I'm like, I don't know how to get a hold of Steve Perry. I can barely get a hold of the people that I'm bringing on occasion. And they're nice enough and gracious enough to do it. And I tend to look for the underdog candidates. I look for people who are up and coming, or I look for people who haven't been talked about enough, or who could offer something maybe a little bit outside your typical mainstream. And what I do is I just have a conversation. I'm not sitting there with a list of questions. I may have some bullet points, things I want to cover. So, with all that said, this gentleman here has made a claim that I think is a little silly. And he's talking about a song by Journey. This Journey 80s hidden gem should have been a hit. And he's a little bit younger than me. In 1981, all right, I was driving a car, but I had just gotten my license. In 1981, I got to attend a Journey concert in late August. And I want to say it was either the 30th or the 31st of August. And this was full strength amazing because it was the band at their absolute peak. Escape was riding up the charts, if not already at the top, and Radio was playing almost the entire album. I would say 70-80% of the album. And this is where people are starting to lose perspective, is because you had formats. You had the mainstream rock stations, which, again, I've brought up. I think I'm the only one that talks about the older mainstream rock chart format on YouTube. And by the way, I even have a book because I'm a geek. So I got this book a while ago. All right. And this book basically has all of the mainstream rock music from 1981 to 2002. I don't use it typically after 1992 or 3. But, and then it has modern rock charts, and it even has a classic rock chart from 1964 to 1980. But this is a very useful tool because they're talking about Stone in Love, okay? They're not talking about a real hidden deep track. They're talking about a song which is probably in the top 5 Journey songs of all time. But let's roll this, and you can see what I'm talking about.
It was always an AOR FM radio single, yeah.
Because that's a song that every time Journey plays it live, everybody goes nuts. It's one of those deep tracks that
It's one of those deep tracks. See, I think I went out and bought Escape the day it came out, and I had the album, I had the vinyl, and see, in those days, this is what we did. We put the vinyl on. We didn't have this lapsed attention span like we do now. So you would sit there. I would be on, the bed of my bedroom there and opening the album and looking at the cover, looking at the artwork inside and listening as the album plays through. And Stone in Love, it didn't even have anything to do with radio, but I had already heard the song a lot on mainstream rock, on the rock station. Again, if you don't like Sheena Easton, you got the top 40 station on, you flip the dial, and you're listening to, Blue Oyster Cult and Eric Clapton and Journey. All right. Now, Journey had top 40 hits, obviously, and this is where things are getting lost in translation. We're almost 40 years removed from this moment. So when somebody goes on YouTube and says that Stone in Love is a deep track, I'm just like, really? You know what's a deep track? I'll show you a deep track. Where Were You off of Departure? That's a deep track, and that's a song, a 3-minute gem, a hidden gem that should be played on the radio. That's a hidden gem, okay? Stone in Love is not a hidden gem. It's basically like saying, that Back in Black, that could have been a big song for AC/DC. What happened to it? Well, Back in Black never hit the top 40. If it did, it just inched in there barely. It was like at number 39. But I think I'm probably referring to another track by AC/DC, probably You Shook Me All Night Long, which was the most radio-friendly song, but top 40 was not all that friendly to hard rock and heavy metal at that moment. And so that represented something new, that this band, this loud band, was actually going to be on top 40. But they got all of their sales, and that album sold and is still selling millions of copies. And you could say, well, all of these songs are deep tracks on this record, based on what this gentleman is saying here. And it's bizarre, because I'm a Journey fan, and maybe because I'm a Journey fan, this is so old school, old hat. He's asking Neal Schon, and even Neal Schon's like, yeah, it was a rock radio song. And I don't think this guy understands the difference between rock radio and how important that format was to most people who grew up in the 1980s versus just plain old top 40 where you got all your pop songs. Yeah, Open Arms, huge hit for Journey. Okay, Who's Crying Now? Huge hit for Journey over at top 40. Stone in Love, equally impactful, huge hit over on rock radio. And by the way, the record label did this kind of stuff because it knew, hey, this is a better song for mainstream rock radio. Now, a lot of those top 40 songs would cross over because they became so big that mainstream rock would play them as well. All right? And that's a huge difference between where we're at now. I mean, you can't even compare in 2020 where we're at when it comes to these formats, because these formats don't mean anything anymore. In those days, not to act like the old man, but those days, those formats were really important. And people, again, would cling to their radio wondering what was going to be number one. They listened to American Top 40, all right? Or they tuned in to hear, I'm just trying to think of some of the shows. There were shows over on mainstream rock radio. There was a show called Flashback with Bill St. James I used to listen to all the time. That was just an amazing show. Mostly, talking about old rock, but still people tuned in because of all of the great information and all the great sound effects and editing and audio snippets and so forth that made the show interesting to listen to. We don't do that. There's no market for that stuff anymore because there's no attention span like there used to be. So I found this to be I don't know how to describe this. This was just kind of weird. I was thinking he was going to go really deep into a Journey album, pull out a song that should have been a hit. Stone in Love was a huge hit. It was a huge hit, mostly at rock radio, and that's why when people go see Journey, they react the way they do. They're not reacting to the song because they're hearing it for the first time, or they're saying, wow, never heard this song, but what a cool guitar lick at the beginning. No, this is one of the best guitar licks that Neal Schon ever came up with. This is one of the best. So I find this interview, I don't know, like it's kind of like the elementary school stuff when if you're the professor of rock, you're probably teaching at a college level, and this is not college level stuff. This is kind of like introductory Journey 101, Stone in Love. So there you have it. And again, I'm not trying to dump on this guy. I'm not going to do any more commentary about him or these videos. And again, I think he does great work. And especially if you're kind of a new convert to, I guess, classic rock, say you're a younger person and you're very frustrated by, you know, what you're listening to on the radio every day, he might be like a good gateway drug to get to know some classic rock. I would also suggest that you check out my friend Sleeve Saturday, who does great videos and does a little bit more in-depth and isn't afraid to talk about deeper tracks. And he'll go through an entire album. I think he went into a Survivor album a couple weeks ago, and I was blown away with his track-by-track breakdown, and he really uncovered some amazing hidden gems. And he's certainly in need of subscribers compared to the Professor of Rock, so I would say go check him out. He's a good guy. He's been on the show a few times, and I think if you want to learn more at like a higher level, you would go check him out. And keep subscribing here, because I'll tell it like it is. Sometimes you can agree and disagree and so forth, but you know I'm not going to hold back my opinions on things. We've heard a lot of these stories hundreds of times about how songs get started or how they were made. I think for the folks that have been around for a while, we need a little bit more meat and potatoes than talking about how great Stone in Love is, because I think we already know. So, in any event, thanks for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you soon.